So for this week's topic, I will be covering the sulfur cycle. So a little bit about the importance of sulfur. It provides the functioning and structure of proteins and enzymes in plants, which animals are dependent on because they eat the plants, which they gain those proteins from. So, and then with a shortage of sulfur, it stunts the growth of plants. So that's a little bit of importance behind it. So with the sulfur cycle, um, I'm going to start with the beginning of the cycle in the atmosphere. So a way that sulfur comes down into our biosphere is through precipitation, through rain, which could either land in the ocean or on the land. So I'm going to start with the ocean first. So when it lands in the ocean, sulfur is either absorbed into the sedimentation rock at the bottom of the ocean, or it can be absorbed through algae, which algae absorbs it and release tiny droplets back into the atmosphere called sulfide. Over here is another way. So sulfur can either enter just directly through the soil itself, or it can result in weathering of rock and decomposition of animals. So then from there, it enters the soil, which can enter fossil fuels. And from the fossil fuels, it could end up for industrial emissions of burning of fossil fuels, as well as volcanic emissions back into our atmosphere. Plants could also uptake the sulfur as well, which also leads animals and back into the decomposition phase and then back into our soil, and then all over again. The sulfur cycle in general is the biogeochemical cycle between the atmosphere, rocks, water, and living organisms. So the important roles in the cycle, I feel like each of the spheres is important, but primarily what I found to be the most, I guess, important in the cycle is one, the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and then the biosphere. So the lithosphere, it absorbs the sulfur into the soil through weathering. And then the hydrosphere, the algae releases the sulfide and it is also absorbed into the sedimentation. And then finally, the biosphere, the plants and animals take in the sulfur and the decomposition brings the sulfur back into the soil. And that cycle keeps repeating. All right, so the transfer of sulfur. It first starts in our atmosphere as sulfur dioxide, then it enters our hydrosphere as sulfide, then it enters our lithosphere as sulfate, and then into our biosphere as sulfate. So the ocean's role in this, like I said in the previous slide, the hydrosphere is one of the main, I guess, spheres, if you want to call it, that's important within this cycle. Ocean is a huge reservoir for sulfur. It dissolves into the ocean, helps dissolve the sulfur into sulfate, which goes into our sedimentary rocks and minerals. And then the algae also releases sulfide. All right, so human impact, as we can see, is definitely the use of fossil fuels. So, fossil fuels, especially coal, releases an excessive amount of hydrogen sulfide into our atmosphere. As I don't know if anyone has heard this before, but the term acid rain, that's what it comes from. Acid rain, it lowers the pH levels of the surface water, which can really damage and impact marine life. Because when the pH level gets out of whack, basically everything else is imbalanced. And as well as we can see, soil damaging microbes in the soil and just damaging all ecosystems, really. And all right, so that is my video for this week. I hope you enjoy.